Thank you so much, everyone, for joining today. I'm going to hand it over to Amanda to get us kicked off in just a minute, but wanted to take this opportunity to introduce everybody to Linda Oglesby. She is our new committees manager. She is on day 2, so she's going to be the fantastic liaison for all of our committees and the chamber. So just wanted to give Linda an opportunity to go ahead and introduce herself to everyone really quick.
Hi, everyone. As Lindsay said, my name is Linda Oglesby. I grew up and have been in the Naperville area my entire life. So I'm so excited to be a part of the chamber as committee manager and getting the chance to work with all of you.
Welcome, Linda. I was going to say Lindsay. It's both L's. What can I say? And I have not been drinking yet. It's too early, guys. We're just kicking this off. Well, welcome everyone. I want to welcome you to the first Women in Business, Women Reinventing 2021. I'm Amanda Kunzer. I am Director of Operations at Good Therapy Counseling, and I am also your Women in Business Chair for 2021. I want to take a moment and recognize the outstanding women we have on our board. Pamela Bartlett from Pino's Palette, Sharmila Fowler from Redline Institute, Amy LaFaus, Catholic Charities, Patti Minglin, Go Girl Communications, Leah Setson, Grunick Family Law, Kim White, Career and Networking Center, Jackie Claremont, Naperville District 203, Amina Saeed, River Valley Law Firm, Michelle Clement, Avenda Naperville, Anita Knotts, Wealth Management, Heather Gottfried, Citibank, Laura Staton from Skillich LLP, and Ashley Shy from Office Evolution. So at this time, I want to introduce our non-for-profit for this year, Catholic Charities. And Amy LaFaus is the Director of Community Services for DuPage for Catholic Charities. And she's going to take a few minutes to talk about the important services they offer.
Thank you, Amanda. Hi, everyone. It is so nice to see so many squares of faces. This might be the most people I've seen on a meeting that I've been on and during this whole pandemic. So that's fantastic. So thank you, everyone, for joining today. And thank you to the Naperville Area Chamber of Commerce and Women in Business for making Catholic Charities the non-for-profit this year. So as Amanda said, I am Amy LaFaus. I'm the Director of Community Services for Catholic Charities in DuPage. We are a nonprofit social service organization, and we provide human services across 7 different counties, including DuPage County, which is where I work out of. So our DuPage County programs include the Cathy Polson Hope House Shelter, transitional and permanent supportive housing for families who are experiencing homelessness, emergency services, including basic needs, as well as rental assistance, case coordination and management, immigrant support, counseling, mobile food pantries, our back to school fairs, and our holiday outreach programs. Our focus is serving those who are low income, are at risk of becoming homeless, or who are currently homeless. So I'm sure, as you can imagine, with the past year that we have had, the need has truly been great. And so one program that I just wanted to highlight is the Cathy Polson Hope House Shelter. And we are a small shelter, usually an 18-bed facility that's located in Villa Park. And so because of the pandemic and 6 feet social distancing, we are actually operating a hybrid model right now, where we have some people who are at our physical shelter and the rest are at a local extended stay hotel. And so with some additional federal funding that we've received, we've been able to increase our bed capacity from 18 beds actually to 30 beds. So just kind of showing how great the need is right now, especially for a congregate shelter type site like that. So really both our agency and our clients have a lot of unmet needs during this difficult time. Mostly a lot of needs for rental assistance, payment for hotel rooms, personal items, food vouchers. And I just want to say we truly appreciate those who graciously give to assist our clients during this time. We've had a lot of people come out and do drives for us, which have been fantastic. supplies for our clients who are living at the hotel. So if you are ever interested in doing anything like that, please let me know. I can put our website and my email in the chat. And, that's it. So I hope that was quick enough, Amanda, but I just wanted to give everyone a little taste of what we do at Catholic Charities. So thank you so much for your time.
So now we are going to bring you our first Woman of the Quarter for 2021. And before I tell you who the name is, which everybody knows, but play along, I want to tell you what is a Woman of the Quarter, you may ask. Besides being a Naperville area chamber member, the Woman of the Quarter is inspiring, innovative, demonstrating level up behavior, helping other women build their network and others along the way. They are that friendly face at chamber events that are seen as a lighthouse for someone you can connect with when you don't know other chamber members at events. At the end of the presentation today, a survey will be sent out to you guys asking for your nominations for the next Woman of the Quarter, as well as programming ideas. Please fill out this 5-minute survey. Now, I'm going to throw this back to Heather Gottfried, and she is going to bring us our Woman of the Quarter.
Thanks, Amanda. So we're so excited to announce that Amina is our Woman of the Quarter. I think we have a slide with her picture. Here it comes. There she is. So excited. As Amanda said, this is truly somebody who stands out as a top member of our Women in Business, and we're so excited to highlight Mina this quarter. So I just want to share a little bit. She gave us so much wonderful information I want to share with you. Mina is a Vice President of Quality and Corporate Social Responsibility for Phoenix Packaging here in Naperville. And what they do is they make injection molded closures for food, beverages, and many other consumer, chemical, and agricultural products. What does she love most about her work? She loves that she gets to be a technical leader and take care of people at the same time. She says so much of what I'm responsible for is fundamentally rides on our employees' commitment to their work. She says the more we take care of our people and celebrate the value that they bring by fully engaging in their roles, the more successful we can expect them to be overall. And that really spoke to me. What advice does she have for other women in business? She says, find a need and meet it. Be the one to show people something they didn't realize they were missing. She also says, sometimes we don't know what we're fully capable of until we're forced with a challenge to test our strength. And I think a lot of us can take pride in that over this past year. She says, don't wait for someone else to test you. Be courageous enough to create the opportunities for growth on your own. And some other things that Mina shared with us, she enjoys baking, cooking, keeping the kids interested in a variety of cuisines. She's a pianist and a vocalist, and she spends a lot of time helping her children cultivate their own musicianship. She loves reading, creative writing, and curling up on the couch with her husband to watch a movie. Mina is also fond of running, hiking, and cycling, and she aspires to compete at triathlon someday. So I hope we can cheer you on, Mina. She says that, of course, as we all feel, being connected in the community is the utmost importance. She says she's blessed to be a board member also at Loaves and Fishes Community Services, where their mission is to provide healthy food and impactful programs to promote self-sufficiency. Serving and volunteering with an organization that works directly to improve the lives of the people in our community makes her own life so much more fulfilling. She's also volunteered with the Alive Center and various programs at Mill Street Elementary. And as a family, they love to support local community events such as Anderson's Bookshop events and events at North Central College. So with that, I present our Woman of the Quarter, Mina Benassi. And I think, is Mina with us, Amanda?
She should be. There she is, right there.
Hi.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
There she is.
No, I think this is a point where I'm supposed to maybe say something, but I'm kind of speechless. That was really very kind.
Those were your words.
That's great. You like making me speak.
Yeah, no, I honestly, a couple of things that you chose to call out from the answers that I provided to you, Heather, were definitely the things that I felt very strongly about.
Yes.
Namely just the notion that we don't know what we're fully capable of until we try, until we're put in a situation where we have to demonstrate one way or another that we can do it, perhaps against what our own internal judgment might tell us we can do. And I was thinking more about that leading up to this event, which is all about reinventing yourself. And I can't think of a better word, honestly, to describe in the most positive possible light what my experience has been in the last year to 15 months. I think we've genuinely all had to reinvent quite a lot just to get through the last year plus. And I don't see that stopping anytime soon. I think we've proven to ourselves perhaps that we are in fact capable of more or something different than what we've been accustomed to. And again, that reminds me of a quote that I've really lived my life by for a very long time, which is, I'm probably not going to get it right word for word, but something to the effect of, and then the day came when the risk to remain tight in the bud became greater than the risk it took to blossom. And I never really fundamentally understood how challenging that quote could be to live, but it just remains true for me every day that, we don't think of there being a risk to remaining tight in the bud. When we say we're within our comfort zone, we feel safe, like that's what comfort means. But to consider that there may be a risk to doing the same, staying the same, not growing is just a different sort of perspective that I've been able to look at to push me to just try something different, ask the question, raise your hand. And gosh, it's been a fast-paced and very fulfilling year as a result. And I'm so happy that I can say that I know so many of you on this call, because I don't know that would have been the case had I not ventured out to try some new things. So thank you again for this honor. It was such an amazing surprise that morning when I got the email from Amanda and from the rest of the board. I'm absolutely thrilled and looking forward to continuing to be involved and meet more of you.
Thank you, Mina. Totally well deserved. So we would be presenting a certificate to you right now, but we can't do that. So it's going to be mailed to your house. So just act like we're all standing there and handing it to you.
Okay. Thank you.
So we are going to move forward. Patti Minglin from Go Girl Communications is going to be our moderator for the panel today. She is going to introduce our keynote speaker, Nicki Anderson, which I think maybe some of you might have heard of her. So I'm going to kick this off to Patti.
Hey, I mean, there's so many things I could say about Nicki Anderson. And I love this, just so you all know, she has no idea what I'm going to say about her because I said this so late. But I thought, I could just do a rundown of her incredibly impressive resume, which includes great job titles with well-respected and well-known companies, including her current role at Benedictine University, where she is the director of a leadership program for undergraduate women, and she helped develop that program, which is amazing. But for some reason, when I was thinking about this, I thought, the resume just doesn't even do justice to all that Nicki Anderson is and all that Nicki Anderson does. I stole this from her LinkedIn bio. Like, I'm a writer, I research things. So she has this great quote in her, or her great line in her LinkedIn bio that actually says she is committed to inspiring the next generation of leaders to discover the power of their voice and potential. I love that line, power of their voice and potential. And if any of you here have ever talked to her for one moment, or you've listened to her give a presentation, or you've just grabbed these thought-provoking quotes she puts out on LinkedIn and Facebook, you know that she isn't just inspiring the next generation of leaders, she is inspiring all generations. So she is someone she has been a writer, an entrepreneur, a speaker, an author, a CEO, and a director. So I couldn't think of any more perfect person to talk to us about reinvention and kind of how to successfully navigate the pivot. So I'm happy to introduce our speaker today, my friend Nicki Anderson.
you. Oh, it's so amazing to see all your faces. Like I'm almost a little verklempt, which is not very common for me. So I'm really happy to see all of your beautiful, shining, happy faces, and including yours, John. It's really nice to see you, my friend. Yeah, really nice to see you. So I'm going to pop up my my screen here and get the party started here. So thank you to everybody. Thank you for asking me to be part of this amazing discussion with these amazing women, whom I love them all, and it's just an honor to be their friend. So when I was asked to be part of this discussion and do the keynote, like, oh gosh, what am I going to talk about? I mean, I can talk about just about anything, but this seemed really important. This has been a really life-altering year, and so I wanted to talk about something that that I had hoped would speak to all of you and not just my experience, but just to kind of share the process. So I came up with the power of pivot, and I'm going to have to move this because I just realized I want to make this isn't changing, so I may have to go do this. So bear with me for just a second. My page, there we go. Okay, there we go. So when I was coming up with the title, my daughter's like, Mom, the word pivot is ridiculously overused. And I said, well, I like alliteration, so I'm going with it. But you're also going to find another reason why I really decided that I wanted to stick with it. So the first question that I wanted to just have you all think about is what these businesses, organizations have in common: restaurants, health and fitness, grocery stores, retail, parents, and the airlines. And so when we look back on this year, I just kind of want you to think about that. And normally these would not all be in the same grouping, but what they have in common is they all did the COVID pivot. And not to make light of COVID, because I had a family member very much affected, but I couldn't help but think about the COVID pivot, like just, a saying that resonated with me. So when you look at restaurants, look at what they had to do. I mean, online menu, delivery, outdoor dining, they discovered things about themselves that I don't think they ever thought about. Yeah, they did DoorDash and those things existed, but suddenly they had to be really creative. And I even noticed that when they were able to have liquor, that they started putting together these kits so that you could make your own, make your own drinks. Health and fitness. Oh my God, Peloton. Like, who isn't talking about Peloton, right? I'm not a Peloton subscriber, but I have heard it's just like people who do it they love it. And I've talked to friends from the industry when I was in it, and they said Peloton they were poised, like they were ready. They knew they were going to do it. They just didn't know they were going to do it this soon. So not only do you have this rush to get something that they were planning on out there, but now you have all of these fitness professionals that find themselves in a new environment. Grocery stores, right? Curbside delivery. Yes, they did it, but now they have to be more efficient. Retail stores. I've had conversation with retailers and just how the way of doing business. As many of you know, my family has Oswald's Pharmacy. They had to switch to testing and doing all of these creative things to make sure that the customers were being taken care of. And then let's talk about parents and caretakers, for goodness sake. Suddenly parents had to be teachers and caretakers and do their job. And this was not something that, I am so glad my kids aren't little, because that, are you smarter than a fifth grader? No, I'm not. So I was really happy that I didn't have kids in school, but I have an incredible appreciation for parents that have had to do this. And sadly, we do know that a lot of women, we call it the she session, have had to leave their jobs to be taking care and of either parents, the sandwich generation, their parents, or their children. And then let's think about travel, right? How that world has dramatically changed. I was watching a YouTube the other day about what hotels are doing, and they actually are now shrink wrapping the television remote control. Like, okay, quite honestly, I don't know why they didn't do that before, because everybody's talked about how creepy that is. But like now they're forced to do it. And your entire experience from checking in to checking out is all now done on your phone. Like, would that have happened had it not been for this unique situation in which we find ourselves? So when I was researching Pivot, I came across this feature tool on Microsoft Excel, which is Power Pivot. And those of you that are familiar with Excel know this. I saw Becky Egan on there. Hi, Becky. And how crucial it is for users. And so it was interesting because they had input data, create relationships, make changes quickly, and provide company management with clear up to the moment analysis. And it hit me. Pivoting is our life. Like, this is what we do. Every day we're asked to input data, right? Listening to others, formulating opinions as we create relationships, both personally and professionally. And now we're having to do all of this virtually, right? Which adds a whole new interesting dimension. And then making changes quickly, which we've had to do, work-life adjustment, business adjustment, personal, right? The life adjustment. And then managing based on up to the moment analysis. So whether it's personal or professional, you've had to assess situations and go, okay, how am I going to adapt most effectively to this? And that was when it hit me that I have to do this power of pivot, because this power of pivot is a tool that people talk about that is used that really is what we're doing every single day. So that's why I decided to stick with it. So I don't want to confuse pivoting with multitasking, because I think that's an easy thing to do. We know that pivot is just a change, the switch, right? Or multitasking is not really switching, it's just doing everything. And one of the reasons why I know personally, I used to say I'm an amazing multitasker until I started doing more research and learning that being a multitasker, yes, there are times when we absolutely have to do it, but it really, really curtails our focus and really limits our ability to focus on the one thing that we're trying to do. And, you know, again, we've always talked about multitasking is just something women do. Well, I think we've done it out of necessity, but more and more we're learning that we got to pull that back a little bit, right? And rethink multitasking. So I just wanted to share a little bit with you about my personal pivots and just how that happened. So some of you know that I have 4 children. Now they're all grown, and I have 2 grandchildren now. So I went from mom to entrepreneur. And then I went from that to children's author, right? A business owner. Then I went from business owner to writer to speaker, then writer to speaker to business owner to chamber CEO, and then leaving the chamber. So someone said to me, like, Anderson, there's no connection to any of these roles that you've done. And I said, actually, there is a huge connection, and that's wanting to make an impact through my words, through writing, through my business, through when I had the privilege of being with the chamber, to speaking, and now working with these amazing young women, right? Everything I did, my purpose was to have a positive impact. It might be completely different, but I think we can all agree that any job, no matter what you have, you're going to have people. And if you have the ability to work with people, which women, and I say this, John, I know you're on the call, but women do have just that communication skill that typically comes across more engaging. Not always, I don't want to say always, but women are known for that more social aspect. So all of these things that I did were really all very much connected. It's just the role itself was a little bit different. So what powered my pivot? First of all, I had to love what I did. And I want to have this asterisk here and say, I was able to make the choice to do what I loved. Not everybody is in that position, right? If you're a single mom with 2 kids and you have your job, oh, I don't love this, I'm going to quit. So I don't want this to come off as like, I just left it because I didn't like it. That's not the case. I wanted to make sure that every morning when I got up, I was excited about getting out of bed because I knew that I was going to be doing something that would make a difference. And that was really important to me in any job that I did. When it got to the point when I would wake up and say, I can't get out of bed, or I really don't want to do this, that was a red flag for me. My gut often speaks louder than my brain, and it took me a long time to really start listening to that, right? We tend to listen to this up here or to the noise out here, and we forget the power of our intuition or our gut, if you will. And I don't know if it's a matter of just getting older and trusting yourself more, but my gut, when it speaks, I've learned to listen. Also, is that all there is? What can I do more? In any role that I'm in, this was kind of another precursor. If I found that there was nothing else I could do, right? And I'll give a great example, the health and fitness industry. I was in that industry for almost 20 years. I knew exactly what I wanted to do when I went into that industry, and I wanted to change the way that people thought about overall health, right? And I did books, I spoke, I did my DVDs, I did all of that. I just kind of felt like my message, I couldn't yell any louder. And so that's when I said, you know, that is all there is, right? What's next, right? And then what do I need to do in order to proceed with my purpose? And remember, I shared earlier that as long as I knew that when I got up in the morning that I had the opportunity to go and make a positive impact, I was on the right path. So what do I need in order to proceed with my purpose? And here's something that was pivotal for me. Yeah, that was meant to be. Is that, am I feeling my work or am I doing my work? Right? Am I really feeling what I'm doing? Am I really connecting with it? Or am I just going through the motions of it? And that was really a game changer for me. Also, do I look forward with new ideas and a smile? As long also as I feel like I'm being innovative, then I feel like I have the opportunity to come up with new ideas, generate new ideas, and make a difference. Panic is a little different than fear. I think it's kind of good sometimes to be a little afraid, right? When I come on this call, right? This meeting today, I'm a little nervous. I'm a little afraid. I think that's a good thing to feel that way. Panic, then that's probably a little bit more of a red flag. So all of these things were really what powered my pivot on changing my roles. But most important was, am I feeling my work or am I doing my work? Am I feeling my role or doing it? And that was always kind of my weekly or monthly check-in. If I just felt like something was off, I really had to reconnect with that. So I always say I'm chronically curious. Whenever I'm thinking of something new, an idea, a role switch, I research. I know Patti said that, you know, I think maybe as writers, that's just what we love to do is I want to learn the story, right? When I talk to people, it's like I always say, tell me your story, right? Because I love to hear that. So research, I ask questions. I talk to people to learn. I don't necessarily talk to people to talk. And sometimes I think that can get in the way. Think about when you're meeting somebody new. And I know sometimes when you're meeting somebody, you're enthusiastic, especially if you find you have something in common, but really talk to people to learn, not to talk. And sometimes that can get in the way of really getting to know somebody and hearing their story. And also meeting people you never know who you'll meet. I don't know about you, but every once in a while, there's something I have to go to that I'll be like, oh, I don't want to go. And I go, and invariably, I come home and go, I am so glad I went to that. And so meet more people. You never know who you're going to meet. What the Kevin Bacon, right? 6 degrees of separation, right? You never know who you're going to meet. And I'll tell you, I love meeting new people and hearing their stories and learning about them because their story is really our story. So plan, plan, and plan. When I started my business, I was the only employee. This is the other part of the pivot. Before I even had an employee, I created an employee training program and a handbook. I budgeted 3 years ahead. Great outcome, good outcome, worst case scenario. What if a pandemic hits, right? Which who would have thought of that, right? But I always created every year when I did my budget, best, good, worse, just so I was prepared. And also looking ahead, right? Because what's working now, tomorrow, and I think this past year has shown us that, you know, things can change in the snap of your fingers. So one of the things that I used to tell business owners when I was in the fitness business consulting with businesses is we can sometimes really get caught up in celebrating when times are great, right? Like, oh, things are awesome. I'm bringing in money left and right. But really, what you should be thinking about is, okay, what am I going to do? Like, this is working, but what do I need to do to stay ahead of the game? What do I need to do to remain and keep that competitive edge? So that looking forward, making sure that I was always prepared. And so it's, as much as I would celebrate when something great happened and acknowledge it, I was also going, okay, what do I need to think about as I move forward with the business? Let me read and research, the latest trends, things that are going to be happening. So I don't get too caught up in, I got this, right, mentality, but I need to get it, and I need to get it moving forward. So be flexible. I think we could all say this last year has certainly taught us the importance of flexibility, but I always remain open, right? I am not an expectations person. I think those who know me well say there's two things I don't do. I don't set expectations, and I don't believe in regrets. Nothing is guaranteed. And I think too, it's not only important to plan for surprises, but when those surprises happen, if you do lead a team, to hang on to that confidence during that time, because when you're leading others, very often they're looking to you for that guidance. So, you might not always get what you want, but I do believe that most often, not always, we get what we need. And I mean that in the most respectful way, right? So hang on to your USP. I talk to women about this all the time. This is your unique skills and personality, right? We used to say USP, unique sales prop, but I changed it to unique skills and personality. Whenever I enter a field, I knew I had a unique skill set. I had fresh ideas, but remember what I said earlier is I always walked in and listened to learn. I didn't walk in and talk about, well, this is what I can do. It took me a while before I would say, okay, I've heard everything, and now here's how we're going to move forward. So celebrate what you're really good at, right? Women are not good at that. We'll tell all of our friends, you are amazing. Mina, right? We're all, Mina, you're so great. Don't forget to do that with yourself, right? As I always say, what would you tell a friend? Don't forget to tell yourself that too. And then, although your business plan may have a switch and we may have this unusual circumstance that comes up, always, always, always be true to you, and always stay with your purpose, right? That was always a common theme with me. Am I making a difference? Am I still having an impact? And although there is, like I said, no one else like you, you will always have competition, but you're you. So even if it's the same business, I know, when I was in the chamber, there were, women that were all in insurance, women that were in banking, women that were, but they all brought their unique and wonderful special skill set to the table, which was awesome. So as we wrap up, never lose sight of the power that you possess. Self-care, your healthy brain and body is power. Your circle of support, like look at this amazing group of men and women that came together this evening, right? The circle of support, there's power in numbers when we support each other. And you can, even though this is virtual, I can feel it, right? I can't see you all, which makes me sad, but I can feel that support. Give yourself the opportunity to have downtime. I used to pride myself on always being busy, like just going all the time. There is power in downtime and rejuvenating yourself and resting yourself. It's really, really important. And laughing, the power of humor. And my friends that are on here, I know we've had some very, very good laughs, for which I am grateful. And then what I mentioned earlier is expectation and regrets are really not in my vocabulary. I believe that expectations crush curiosity, and regrets cloud vision. So it really cuts off those opportunities. And those are really power filling things to remember. So that's it for me. I am just so grateful for the opportunity to share this, but I'm even more excited to hear what these amazing panelists have to say. So many thanks, and I will stop the share.
Thank you, Nicki. Oh my gosh, that's so wonderful. Oh, that's great. Did you have housekeeping things, Amanda? I just totally jumped into my moderator role.
No, I'm going to pass it to
like
you.
So excited to move into the next.
Yeah, it's all you. It's It's all you.
What is my time? What is our time on the panel? Just so I can keep a little eye.
We're running a little late. That's okay. Cause I knew we were all going to be like, I know. So we're going to shorten some of the breakout rooms. So it's fine. Just
what time do I need to end? That's all I need to know.
So,
I think we can go to 10 o'clock, Patti, 10 o'clock.
Okay, awesome. That sounds
that
great.
should be good. No,
we should be able to wrap a lot of it up by then.
Yeah. So let's just see if we can go until 6:30.
Okay.
We'll start there and then try the breakout rooms if we need to shorten it that time.
Got it. We're all good.
Okay.
So we're going to move right into our panel. And before we even start, I know it's super hard to be interactive on Zoom, and we've all been in those meetings, but we're going to try to make this as interactive as possible. So over on the right side of your screen, there's a wonderful little chat section. So if you have any questions for our panelists as we go on with the discussion, I have questions for them, but I would much rather ask them your questions. So feel free to send your questions. I'm going to keep an eye on it and pull as many of them that I can. Unlike Nicki, I'm not a good multitasker. That is not my strength. So I will do my very best multitasking role. So I'm going to have our panelists introduce themselves, but I'm going to have them not only just tell you who they are, but I'm going to ask them to kind of speak about this thing about reinvention. And I love that we are using the word pivot in such a positive way. We can get rid of the Ross Geller and the couch. Did everybody see that episode where he's doing the pivot? That's what I think every time I see it. But I looked at the definition of reinvention. And the definition of reinvention, is the action or process through which something is changed so much that it appears to be entirely new. So I'm going to ask each of our panelists to not only introduce themselves, but tell us one way that you have reinvented yourself this past year. So I'm going to start with Anita Knotts, because you're the first one on my block.
You would.
I would. That's how I work.
Oh boy. How do I follow up Nicki Anderson and Mina Benaska? Good God. I'm going to give it a whirl. So glad to be here, staring at everybody's faces. I think we all need some level of connection desperately. And if it's still got to be Zoom, then Zoom it's going to be. And I'm happy to be here and honored to be in such great company. As I was preparing for this topic, I don't know if it was Mina or Nicki that just said it. Really, we've all reinvented whether we even realize it or not. We've done it, and we've been forced to do it over the past year. But when I think about the concept of reinventing, for me personally, it almost comes into two different concepts, right? One is like the external reinventing. And we'll probably dive into this a little bit as the discussion goes. But after 29 years of working for somebody, for a company, for another entity, I've decided to work for myself, right? So I'm moving into this next phase of my career and reinventing myself as an entrepreneur. And we can go into how scared the hell I am, but that's all, good and normal. But then there's this concept of internal reinventing that I kept coming up in my own head. And this is what I mean by that. For so many years, it's not like I just woke up January 1st and decided to, hey, let's leave my company and go start something new. This has been a conversation that I've been having in my mind for years now, certainly pre-pandemic. But I think what is different now is that in the past, I always came up with any number of excuses of why I shouldn't do it. And it all centered around what would the impact be on everybody else? Not what would the impact be on me and the happiness and joy that it would give for me to jump into this exciting phase, but more so, what would this do to the team I'm managing at the firm? My gosh, we have such a great relationship. I can't just leave them in the lurch. And what would it do to the clients? And my gosh, I'm like the right hand for my boss. And and then, oh my gosh, I'm getting paid well. I should be happy. And I've got this stable paycheck and this great life and all the material. I can't, and daughter's going off to school. Y'all know what I'm talking about. You all know what I'm talking about. You sit here and you find every excuse in the book because we've got to be the caretakers. Guess what? That internal reinvention, I finally went like this. And I said, no, it's time for me. Not enough gray hairs yet. We're pushing towards that, but it's time for me right now. So I think the internal reinvention is actually far more important, that conversation that we have with ourselves and looking at our situation differently, because that's what leads to that external reinvention. So
Oh, that's so true. You had so many good nuggets there. I'm so glad we're recording this because I felt like I couldn't write them all down. But so true. And I do think we often think of that, the external things first, like who am I going to affect by making this change, instead of how am I going to affect myself? Like, I think I love that you flipped your internal reinvention. Kim White, you are next on my screen.
Kim White. Well, you know what? I should have listened to Anita because I did the reverse. I'm Kim White, and I am the executive director of the Career Networking Center, which is a nonprofit that helps individuals in job search. And for me, I needed to, from day one, I recognized that while we were not deemed an essential business, we were essential, right? So March 13th, for us, it was interesting because I remember telling my team, go home. It'll probably be an extended spring break. I'll see you guys in 2 or 3 weeks. We'll be back in the office, right? March 14th, I realized, you know what, we're probably not coming back into the office anytime soon. So let's go ahead and get this program converted over into a virtual program because people were going to need us. And so we spent that weekend, myself and my small, mighty team spent that weekend completely converting our program in terms of helping our clients look for jobs into a virtual program. And we did that all in a weekend, no sleep. It was not an easy feat, but we did it. But I knew that we really needed to be there for folks who were going to wake up on Monday morning, Tuesday morning, and knew that they were going to need help because so many people, as you all know, were laid off and didn't know where, what was going to happen next. But I also knew that before, while we needed to be ready to take care of our clients, I also needed to understand where my team was. And so the unknowns of the pandemic obviously affected us in a number of different ways. We had our daily Zoom calls a couple times a week. We had to strategize about what to do. We were, some of us were taking care of aging parents. Some of us were taking care of e-learning. I think some of my folks mentioned that. And so I really needed to focus on my team. What was it that I needed to do to help them? And so I looked at my team in a different way in that, in terms of building our relationships, right? Building relationships amongst one another and really trying to help them through that process. Again, on Zoom calls, the dog is coming in, the cat is coming in. I'm trying to help my team. And it was tough. It was challenging. And it's been a challenging, year for us, helping folks get back to work. But as I reflect on the year, I will tell you, our program is robust. We're continuing, our new normal has been pretty amazing. We have had over 40 people land new jobs during this time. And this was not something that I even thought remotely was going to happen. I mean, I was fearful for our clients, right? But we quickly pivoted. And I didn't really focus on myself. And I hear what Anita or Nicki was saying about self-care. It's so important. I didn't really focus on that like I needed to, but I knew that I needed to be there to take care of our clients. But now, Anita, I'm focusing on that internal, and I'm sure we'll talk about that in a little bit. So thanks.
Oh, that's great. I can't even imagine. And so many of us, I'm sure, have sat in that space, where when this all happened, there was no book to tell you what to do and what to do next. And there is this thing about taking care of ourselves, but there were other people we had to take care of, whether those are kids that suddenly were, my son had a clay class, like he was a pottery class in high school, and he was suddenly doing it in my home office. And you have to figure those pieces out for the people that are depending on you too. That's Cathy Severy, you are next on my list.
Hello, everyone. First off, I'm just so thankful to be here. I've been a chamber member for 22 years now, and it's just such a rich part of who I am as a person, and I just can't be more thankful for it. Anyway, I think I'm hearing someone else I'm sorry to interrupt, but I'm hearing someone else. There we go. I think, there we go. And so I thought about this question, and there have been so many times in my business life that I have had to reinvent myself. I have had to pivot. I have had to literally be brought down to zero due to insurance changes, due to the pandemic. But something popped up in my head today that I actually had a first time pivot, a first time reinvention. And that goes way back to 1995. I was 21 years old and I moved to Davenport, Iowa to go to chiropractic school. I grew up in New Jersey, so this was like 1,000 miles away. I'd never lived away from home. I didn't know anyone there. And for those of you that know me, there was a time that I was really, really quiet and insecure. And I didn't have a lot of deep friendships. I had friends, but I always just felt like I didn't fit in. I always felt like I was trying to crawl into groups of circles of people. And I just didn't have a lot of confidence. So my history up to that point had included my mom leaving when I was 17. I had a really bad back injury, which led me to be kind of partially debilitated for a year and a half. And then finally I found chiropractic and it honestly changed my whole life. So off to chiropractic school I go, moving for 1,000 miles away and, you know, being brave and kind of charging forward into this new life I was going to create for myself. And I remember the first day in orientation. And on that first day, there were about 300 people in the gymnasium of Palmer College of Chiropractic. And it was about a 2-hour orientation. And I do not know what the hell they said. I don't know what any of the speakers said, because for the first time, I remember thinking, no one knows who I am. Not one person in this room knows that my mom left during high school. Not one person knows that I really despise my body. Not one person knows that I'm insecure. And I had this aha moment that I thought, I can be whoever I want to be. And I don't want to continue being who I am right now. So I'm going to make a change. And we left that 2-hour orientation. We went to the Union, which was kind of the student center for Palmer. And I don't know where I found the chutzpah to do this, but knees are knocking, hands are shaking. I just went around and shook everyone's hands. Said, hi, I'm Cathy from New Jersey. How are you? I just freaking faked confidence. I had none of it. And I just found from somewhere deep inside of me, I need something to change. I don't want to be like this anymore. And so I left that, you know, get together with an opportunity to go meet a bunch of people out at a bar later that night. I didn't go to bars. I didn't have any friends to go to bars with. So in my previous life, so I kind of went back and forth. Am I going to go? Am I not going to go? Am I going to go? And I must have talked myself in and out of going 40 times in the next 2 hours. And finally I was like, Cathy, if you're going to do this, you're going to do this. So I went to the bar. I think it was called Half Times. And I met this girl, Christine, there. And we agreed that we'd sit together in class the next day. And then I went to class the next day. We found each other, and there were the 2 other girls, Amy and Mary. And the 4 of us became best of friends for the next couple of years. And I think, had I not taken that one risk, had I not found deep within myself the confidence to just put myself out there, even though it scared the crap out of me, I honestly don't know. I wouldn't have any business pivots to tell you about right now, to be honest. That changed my whole life. So that's the thing that popped in my head that I thought that'd be where I want to start, that initial pivot for me.
Nicki mentioned this too, the difference between fear and panic. You know, that idea that the fear kind of pushes us to do these things that we normally wouldn't do. And you sometimes have these out of body experiences where who's doing this? Like, who is pushing me? There's such a difference between those two feelings, even though we get them mixed up all the time. I love that. Your story is very inspirational. I hear it every time and I think, oh, I love that story. Nicki, I know you told us a whole lot, I mean, about kind of answering this question, but is there anything else you want to talk about with this past year about your reinvention that you've had this past year?
Probably the biggest is just going into the world of academia. It is cheese and chalk. It's so different from the business world. So different from the business world. How they interact, and when I say they, I mean faculty, staff, administration, has been such a learning curve for me. And then I was only on my job 2 months before this hit. So what I decided to do, because I literally built this program from nothing. So I think the beauty of this past year is that I had two choices. I could sit around and wait until someone told me what to do and to figure out the world of academia, or I could do what I love doing best, and that is better to beg for forgiveness and ask for permission. And just dove right in. And a year later, I have this amazing program, and 17 are in our first cohort that will begin in the fall. So that was my relearning. I think, as I get older, who wants to learn anything new? I love learning something new. And I was afraid. I wasn't panicked, but I was afraid probably 20 times this year. And I'm here to tell you about it. So that's it.
That actually leads me perfectly into my next question for everyone on the panel, because you've all mentioned this in some way, shape, or form. I think Anita actually said she wanted to talk about how the hell scared she was right now, which we could take a while. So with this thing, fear, because fear is very powerful. I mean, again, I think all of you mentioned it. When you have that fear, how do you push past it? Like, what is it that you have done or that's worked for you that helps you kind of push past it and go to the bar to meet these new friends, or to just hang in there through the pivoting of a pandemic? Like, what is it that lets you move past that fear? And I'm opening this up to the group, or I will call on you by name. I can go either way.
So I'll start. I think one of the things that I've learned is that you need to start getting comfortable with being uncomfortable. And unless you do that, you're never going to move forward. Yeah. And I also know that people are built differently. Some people are truly comfortable being in that same zone, and not really moving ahead, but that's where they live. That's their comfort, and they're fine, they're content. I have found that for me, it's like the bicycle thing, right? If you're biking uphill, unless you keep pedaling, you're going to go rolling backwards. And I have this exercise that I do in my head. What is the worst case scenario, right? Whatever it is. Several people know about my decision after 5 years in the workforce many, many years ago to just quit my job, borrowed from my 401k, loaded up a U-Haul, and drove to California. Worst case scenario, unless it's death, I do it because two things can happen. Option number one, you succeed and you move ahead. Option number two, if it's not death, you fail and you move ahead. Because failure is moving ahead. It's something that we have to constantly, I know it sounds really cliche because everybody says that now, but it really is true. Embrace that failure. If Michael Jordan can fail thousands and thousands of times and get to where he has, well, maybe that's too masculine for this conversation. Michelle Obama, okay? I mean, I think unless you start getting comfortable with failure and generally that fear, you're going to remain stagnant. And that is a bigger fear for me. So what's the bigger fear? Staying put and doing nothing? And I think Nicki was mentioning this, Mina as well. Or is the bigger fear, my God, I'm going to be in this exact same position 10 years from now if I don't take the risk. So.
Yeah, that was a great quote that Mina had on that about the flower being in the bud. I love that.
I can jump into there, talk about failure. As some of you know, I had a business called Cafe and Play. I run the Branch Moms community now. It used to be Naperville Moms Network and was for a long time. And after I took it over in 2011, when Kelly Thompson moved away, I had this idea that we needed this clubhouse. We needed this in-person coffee shop in Playtown. And I had just really gotten back on my feet from my divorce and from some law changes, one of those business pivots. And I remember my dad saying, Cathy, do you really want to risk your financial future right now when you just got yourself back up and running? And I remember so strongly feeling, and it's kind of cliche, that when I'm 65, even if I look back and I have to close Cafe and Play, which I did after 3 years, at least I know I did it, because I have it it's in my heart, and at least I know I did it. And so if I didn't do it, I know I'd always wonder, well, what might have that turned into? And so for me, I've gotten really comfortable with risk and failure, because like Anita said, what's the worst that can happen? I mean, the worst thing to happen is I can lose tons of money, which I did. I can feel a little embarrassed, which I did. But I felt like I got a triple degree in entrepreneurship right there. And Cafe and Play, we had 7,500 families come through in 3 years. It actually springboarded Naperville Moms Network to turn it into what it is today. So without Cafe and Play, I don't know that the majority of my business life would be running a mom's group right now. So it's just interesting the way the journey of life takes us.
Yeah. And I will just add, I mean, just to expand upon what Anita said, you know, moving forward, I mean, everyone is scared about it, right? And so what, for me, it's very uncomfortable. And like Anita said, it's trying to be comfortable in an uncomfortable situation. But I think what happens is as you go on, you realize, you know, the people that are around you, the routines that you do, they all become very familiar. And so it's important to just acknowledge that fear, that anxiety, that apprehension that you have. And at the end of the day, I think, you know, while it may take a little while, but you set yourself up to really thrive in situations. So I think it's important to understand that you have to get uncomfortable in order to get comfortable. And moving forward, it's going to be a little uneasy to do and uncomfortable, but you got to take that leap of faith and do it.
Ah, that's great. On the flip side of that, we just had somebody ask this question in the chat. So we talked about failure, but in this past year, where did each of you find your greatest inspiration? I love the surprise questions.
I can start with that because I think a few people here know a lot about what's going on. But I think the biggest thing for me is finding purpose. It leads back to what Nicki was talking about in terms of wanting to make a positive impact. And what I skipped over in the introductions was, you know, who the hell am I, right? So I am Anita Knotts, and I've been in financial services, I don't think I said that, for almost 30 years. So through the years, I knew that you all, some of you know the story too, that I moved here as an immigrant, didn't know how to speak English. So starting with that thread way back like 45 years ago to now when I'm on the cusp of turning 51, I found that sitting in a classroom, not having a voice, led me to, in my adult life, in my career, want to be a voice for the voiceless, right? So which ultimately means marginalized groups. Can you think of a bigger marginalized group than women and even women of color, you know? And so that within financial services, I took that to then talk about financial literacy for women and the importance of women owning that financial literacy component. And then as well, working in a male-dominated industry, how do we help women progress through those channels? So both of those things combined, I knew that there was something in there for me. I knew that there's a business there. I just didn't know what it was. But God bless the personal advisory board of Anita Knotts, many of whom are sitting on this conversation. And they're the ones who said, you do this well, this is what's needed, match it up, go. And I would strongly advise any of you, if you don't have that core group, and I don't mean just getting together and talking about, you know, sex and your OB-GYN appointments, get together and talk about what your future looks like. How are you going to thrive? How are you going to succeed as you, not as a mother or a wife? So once I knew what I was good at, and I had that gentle nudge by the people who care deeply for me to say, this is what you're here to do. I found my purpose and the inspiration. It just happened to coincide with the pandemic. So that's where it is.
Timing is everything, isn't it? That's great.
You gotta love the passion of Anita Knotts, don't you?
You
just,
do.
you have to. I would say for myself during this year, it was really coming back to core, meaning what is at the core of my life? Like, who's really important? What is really important? What am I going to make time for and space for? And what don't I have time or space for? And it's just been interesting to see some of the friendships that I have solidify and rise through this time, because we were all kind of, for a while, they're hanging on, right? We got kind of both hands we're like both feet, both hands, just trying to hang on, not fall off the wall. So I have been really inspired by friendship and my partnership with Jason and my kids. And I'm just very thankful for those relationships. And at the end of the day, what's more important than loving, caring, respectful, mutually beneficial relationships? I can't think of anything.
Yeah. And Cathy, I'll just add to that. For me too, it's been my relationships. You know, my kids both came home. I spoke about March 13th. On March 23rd, both of my kids came home from the East Coast, where they had both been working to work from home. And, you know, not that I wasn't, still mom, but I became like full-time mom again. I was cooking dinner every day, making these big meals, whatever they wanted. I did all of the stuff that I loved to do when my kids were home. And for the past 10 years, we had been doing these 2-week vacations or long weekends or what have you, but we were not together for this amount of time. And I got to see my children in a different light. I watched how they took work calls and how they were excellent employees. I mean, I got to see that, firsthand. And again, not that I didn't think that they were, but there was just this pride of watching my kids and knowing that we did okay with them. And then the other relationships I will say is, I think to what Cathy said about just our friendships. So my husband is a retired military guy. We moved 13 times in 22 years. We have friends all over, the world. And because of this pandemic, we were forced to be home. And so we were trying to find out what to do every Friday night, right? Where normally we would be hanging out with local friends and doing things. But now we were on Zoom calls, and we were Zoom calls with people out of the country, in the country, but every Friday night to this day, with few exceptions, we've had Friday night Zoom with friends. Kahoot is like our big thing. We do it all the time. And so I'm thrilled that we've been able to really expand upon those relationships. And especially, during this time, there was so much that was going on. I mean, obviously we had the pandemic. I mean, if you think about it, there are 3 or 4 different pandemics wrapped up in this past year. But it's been great to really establish some of those relationships and really build upon them.
Nicki, what about you and your inspiration this past year?
Well, you know how I love alliterations.
Love it. And that's what I love about you.
This pandemic the pandemic has been the power of pause for me. I'm always doing and going. And this really, like I think Cass said, kind of getting back to your core, to your center. This gave me pause in so many ways. For those of you that know me, I am a quote fanatic. People ask me why I do quotes, and I said, well, every time I wanted to look up a quote, there was never any women. It was very few women that did quotes. And so I said, I want to create my own catalog of quotes so that when women or the next generation are looking up a great quote about leadership or power or innovation, that it won't just be 50 quotes all by men, that you'll now start seeing some women that have passion and insight into life. And so that motivated me. This power of pause really, really made me go deep. And I've been so grateful for that, because coming out on the other end, I have this whole new lens that's been pretty rewarding.
It's so nice to just kind of think about, we did, I mean, I can remember, I think I read in like a journal I was writing at the beginning of this pandemic, like how I'm going to do all these things to find myself, because I thought we were only going to be in a pandemic for 2 weeks. And I thought 2 weeks is good. I can find myself in 2 weeks. And then I look back and I think, okay, I got kind of tired of that after 2 weeks. I can only do so much finding. Do you think these things that you've mentioned, these relationships and the power of the pause, do you think that you can carry those into life when life goes back, as we start to move back to normal? Have you learned something through this that, you know what, I need to cultivate these things a little more to move me forward?
If I can jump on that, Patty, I think you just said it. Okay, I'm going to take these next 2 weeks and change my life, right? Or I'm going to go to a conference and I'm going to come back and everything's going to change. Or I'm going to start this new diet program and in 6 weeks, I'm going to be amazing. No, you won't. And the reason is because it is a journey. There's ebbs and flows without a doubt. But because I've had a year, I've had the privilege of this year to be inside my house, to connect more with simplicity. I can't imagine like I even said with work, I hope they don't expect me to come into the office 5 days a week, because my work-life balance, it has dramatically changed and I just won't. And so that goes back to, you know, what you said is it's just, you can't do anything in 2 weeks. This has been this forced pause, and it's been a long one and a rich one in more ways than we'll realize. We'll look back 10 years and go, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. I love that.
I know that I will never, ever go back to the schedule I used to keep of events, of going. While I also have Zoom fatigue and I love in-person events, I do love the opportunity to be able to say, hey, do you want to meet? Hey, let's do a 30-minute Zoom call, especially for people that maybe you're just introducing yourself to, as opposed to me showering, doing my hair, putting on real pants, driving 20 minutes away, meeting someone, and then having at least an hour and then driving home. All of a sudden it's 2.5 hours, whereas I can be in my pajamas almost, and meet someone for 30 minutes on Zoom. And then you can kind of get that introductory relationship started, and you get a sense through that, is this someone I really want to move forward to and really get to connecting more with? Or is this not maybe someone that is someone I want to move forward with? Yeah. So that for me, and even like the nighttime events, it just, at some point, there's just too many. So I think that I will hold my calendar tightly and slowly release time and just see how it goes.
Yeah.
I think we have to be careful also. I have to be careful how I say this, because the pandemic has not necessarily been a good thing, but we have to find the silver linings where we can. And oddly enough, as much as we all say, oh my gosh, we're craving connection, I feel like I've gotten closer to a lot of people over this time, simply because there was nothing else to do. So even if it was through Zoom, even a 45-minute Zoom call just to check in with people, I felt like, gosh, if I were doing that 9 to 5 thing and craziness and running off to an event here or a breakfast meeting or this, I would not have had this time. So it's not just with family, but I'm saying with my circle of, my tribe, as I like to call them, I feel like those connections have been far more enhanced simply because we had the ability to do so. Although I know that it's been ultimately very tragic for so many people, so many families. We have to find the glimmers where we can.
Yeah, and I would just echo everything you all said. I remember I did not get in my car and go anywhere until May. It was the end of May before I even got in my car and drove anywhere after March 13th. And I mean, I'm literally in my car every day, going to work, doing all those things that you all talked about. And the only time I left my house during that time was to go for a walk. And I remember just thinking, this is not normal. Like, this is, what this pandemic has done, the isolation and all of that. But I will tell you, for me, the silver lining was, again, having my kids, my husband. I remember early on thinking, I don't know how long we can be in this house together doing this, right? We were going to need a break. And then just 3 weeks ago, he went back to work. And I'm like, why are you need to change jobs. You need to find a job where you're home all the time. Because I have gotten used to it, because we were, like you said, Cathy, we were going all the time, back and forth. Our conversations were on the phone real quick, So I think the silver lining is really building upon those relationships, both personally and with friends across the world. So
that actually leads further. We have another question from the chat, and because you guys have mentioned relationships and the strength of relationships and how we've deepened those relationships. And Anita, you specifically mentioned like the personal advisory board of Anita Knott's, like having that group that pushes you forward. But what about the people that don't push you forward? What about the dissenters and the detractors? How do you stay the, I love the sighs. That's just what we do. We just,
Sorry.
How do you stay, it's such a great question.
That was not Kim White doing that.
No, that was not, could have been it. But how do you stay the course when there are people that may not want you to succeed? And some of those people could be good friends. Like there have been friends that were great friends in the beginning, but when you started maybe pushing forward with a new job or a new initiative, maybe they don't support you. How do you handle that?
So I have a whole group of like tens of thousands of moms that on the mom forum groups. So I'm gonna go first, just because it's funny. I've been running now the branch, and it was Naperville Moms Network, for almost 10 years. And I've hosted the mom forum groups for about 8 years. And our large Naperville one has like 26,000 members in it. And so through the years, we've had to really fine tune our guidelines to keep to the core mission of the group, which is helping moms connect, make friends, and find resources. And it's amazing. I just told my staff, I'm like, isn't it amazing how many shades of gray there are? Right? Well, it's a business ad, but it's for a charity. So, and it's for a local high school. And so, it's a personal story, but we want to find resources for that person, but they're sharing too personal amounts of information that someone could take a screenshot and send to the ex-husband. I mean, some people get really, really personal on it. So up until this year, all of the large groups, the one in Naperville, the one in Plainfield, one in Oswego, they were open posting for these large groups, and anyone could post whatever they wanted, which then would sometimes just blow up into a political storm, into just a mom battle, no matter what the topic was. And as we had to set these guidelines, I can't even tell you the names I've been called by some of these moms. They've never met me. They don't know what my heart is. They've never spent 5 minutes trying to figure out who I am. And it is unbelievable the things that have been sent to me by private message. And little by little by little, I had to build a shield, a literal, not actually a literal shield, but a figurative shield in front of my body, where if people were just coming at me, which happens, I would say a couple times a week at this point, it used to be more, I had to figure out, I know what I'm doing. I know the mission of this group, and it's not to have battles. That's not what I want. There's plenty of places online to have battles. I want this to be positive, uplifting. And so I slowly grew this kind of armor around me where I try not to take anything personally. And it's been an interesting journey. That being said, at the end of the day, I lay my head down and I know that I'm doing so much to help moms connect, and that's what it's there for. So I hold strong to that mission. And when it gets really negative and stressful and things are coming at me or coming at my other admin that work for me, then we just try to remember, why are we here? And if we know why we're here and we're confident in that, then you can say whatever you want about me.
Power of the why. Like when you can stay so focused in your core why. And I read Simon Sinek, who talks, I always say his name wrong. I just screwed that probably. But he, when he talks about knowing your why, he also talked about how your why doesn't change. So while we may evolve and do different things, the language of it may change. Your why, the core of who you are or who your organization is or who your company is, that never really changes. And I think both Anita and Nicki touched on that a little about why they do what they do. But and I also like the idea of Cathy having a literal shield in front of her when people are coming at her. Let's do that. Let's make a shield.
Thank you.
What about the rest of you, your detractors and your dissenters?
You know what? Let me just take a stab at this also from the loveliness that women encounter in corporate America. First of all, let me just quick editorial. Cathy is amazing. I don't even know how she puts up with some of the stuff that she puts up with. Most of us wouldn't have the patience for that. And knowing her and knowing her heart, I think she's marvelous. And the other announcement I would make is, women, let's be nice to each other. Okay, so now getting to my answer. I have always been a very emotional and passionate person, and we know how women are viewed with those labels, right? Especially at the workplace. So I've had to check that over the years. I don't know if I'm proud of it or not. It's just a fact. I've had to a little bit like rein it in. So what I try to do is focus on what the benefit is to the party that's disputing with me. Like, what is it? Where can we find a common ground where they're going to benefit from it and I'm going to benefit from it? So if we can come to that halfway point, well and good, and we move on. I also know that the question is probably directed at, what if it goes past that? If it goes past that, it took me several years to figure it out. I just think that life is too short, and in certain situations, you're never going to convince that other person or that other entity, right? It could be a company that's never going to have their values aligned with your values. So if that's the case, you've got to make that tough decision. This could be in a personal relationship, right, in your life, that you keep trying and you try and try and it just doesn't work. Or it could be professional, and you keep trying and trying and trying at a company and it just doesn't work. But I think that there's a lot of strength in simply walking away from situations like that. And the day you make that decision, it's incredibly empowering. Do I pick up the phone at 2 in the morning and call one of the members of my tribe? Absolutely. Do I text? Absolutely. To make sure that I'm thinking through this correctly. I don't make, what do you call it, on the spot decisions. They're thought through, but at certain points, and I think Nicki said this to me a couple of years ago, you know, once you turn 50 years old, you stop giving a shit, right? You just want to, here's where I am. I'm not for everybody, and not everybody's for me. So I think you just have to start learning enough about yourself so that you know at what point you just cut the tie and move on.
Yeah, that's great.
And I'm not going to add much more other than to say that, you know, I think this year has been, you know, tough, right? So I think waking up every morning as a woman, right, as a woman of color, the things that we have seen from a systemic racism point of view, to what Cathy was speaking about it with social media. I mean, the things that people have shared, have sent, have personally said to me has been really heartbreaking. And I think it's what I've done just most recently in the last, I think, couple of months. I've turned off my notifications on Facebook, and I just don't look at that stuff anymore. Now, people will share things and I'll look at that, but I've just turned it off. I think there's a quote by Maya Angelou: when someone shows you who they are, you believe them. And so I have just decided to take that. But to have people call you out, call BS on your life story, your life experiences has just been a pretty interesting. It's been a pretty interesting time. So.
Well, and social media has just exasperated that whole thing. Yeah. Like, there is no boundary anymore. So you have to set that boundary, because they're gonna go cross it. So you have to set that boundary for yourself. Nicki, anything you want to add about dissenters and detractors?
Well, you guys know what I think about social media, so I'm just gonna try and hold it. But I just a couple things. When Kath talks about the shield, I can't help but think about the shield. You know, you are who you surround yourself with, right? And that shield is those people that love you and care about you. And I think that as women, especially when I was younger, I'll know when I hit 50, Anita. But when I was younger, you know, so worried about what people would think. And I could do a presentation and I'd have 50 people come up to me afterwards and tell me what a good job I did. And then I'd read all the surveys that you send out after someone's, one person would say something untoward. That is the only thing that stuck in my head.
Yeah.
Not that I did a great job, but so I would just say, we need to listen to the louder voices, the positive voices that prevail. I mean, obviously I want honesty. If I sucked, I sucked. But very often we hear that one negative thing. And I just personally, I have always said in this next phase of my life that Anita just called me out on, and that is that I care less about what people think, but I care more about how I treat people. And so that is, I don't care what people, especially at this time in my life, who cares? But what I do care about is how I interact with people and how I treat people. And that's the difference. So
that's such a great thing to focus on instead of the other. It's funny, Nicki, when you said that about that one tiny comment that's negative and all the rest, I saw everybody's head on the screen. Everybody was shaking. Yeah. It's like we've all been in that space where we pay attention to that one tiny little negative instead of the big over sounding good stuff. Right. I know we're going to head into,
that while that could be a dangerous road, I also think that that's what drives a lot of us towards success. So that's my personal editorial.
No, I like that.
Yeah,
I like that turn on that. That's so true. I know we're going to head into our breakout room soon. So this last question I'm going to ask each of the panelists to answer is actually the question we're going to head into our breakout rooms to start conversation. So everyone on all three screens that I have going needs to be thinking of this, because somebody asked me this question last week and I sat with it for the longest time. You can't sit with it for very long because we have a shorter amount of time. But the question is, if you could go back 1 year ago at the beginning of all this and give yourself one piece of advice, what would that piece of advice be? I mean, just Cathy Suber, you get to go first because I'm staring. All of you started looking down. I felt like we were in school, like you all were looking down.
It's such a hard question. I think I'm just so thankful that I didn't know how long this would be back then. That's my only answer. It's not even an answer. It's just, thank God we didn't know back then this was going to be this long. And I don't mean to make light of it. It's just, it's been a really heavy year. I mean, we've had this wonderful conversation, but the fact is that so many of the people I love, not just business related, but a lot of personal stuff going on, heavy personal stuff. It seems as if things were bubbling up, this was the year that everything bubbled up, for good or for bad. So like you, Anita, right? You're like, it's now or never, I'm doing this, right? I'm moving forward. But for some people, and especially for some kiddos that have been out of school and out of touch, like just the heartbreak that has come with this year. So I guess I don't have a right answer. I'm just thankful I didn't know what I know now.
So you would just tell yourself, ignore it. Just ignore and go. Great advice.
I'll go next. For me, I think I would tell myself to be prepared, to try to prepare yourself for the enormous loss that you would ultimately face. So for a number of reasons, from, George Floyd, someone I didn't know, but to my father-in-law, who we recently lost to COVID. We were not prepared for that. And when you watch what has happened over the year, where folks mocked a lot of things around, the pandemic, and just really having to go through that has been extremely hard. So I would say we would need to get into a mindset and a space where we were prepared for a lot of the loss and the hurt that we've experienced.
That's a good one. Anita?
It's interesting because I have so many brilliant women who've been telling me this for years. And it took the last 12 to 15 months for me to realize this. But from a personal perspective, as well as my career, the only thing I have control over is this right here. Nothing beyond it. As your kids grow older, you don't have control over them really. The person you choose to spend your life with, you really don't have control over them. You know, your employer, they're going to do what they're going to do. It's just focus on what it is that you can control. And it's not even pandemic related. I think it's been hammered into my brain now. So that's what I would say.
Nicki.
Stop trying to figure it all out. Just go in with a beginner's mind, right? Don't try and figure it all out. I think that's what I would.
Yeah, because I think that all of you said that, like, you can't control if we learned anything this last 12 months, we don't control a whole lot of anything, and we can only control what is in front of us at that moment and how we respond to it. I think, Kim, your comment about being prepared to step into these losses and this deepness, it's our response to things that is what we can control. So I just want to thank you ladies so much. This was so fun. And we really could just sit here and talk until 10 o'clock at night. That is no lie, but I know we've got a time. I'm paying attention, Amanda. So Amanda, I will turn it back to you and you tell us what we do next.
Okay. So, well, first off, I don't know if you guys are thinking this, but Patti, I swear to God, you need your own like talk show. I would love to sit on your couch and chew the fat and let's like talk about everything. Seriously.
She's awesome.
Just come. It's not really a TV show. You can just come to my house and sit on my couch. That's fine. I'm good with that.
Yeah, we could do that too. Yeah, sure. Okay, so ladies, we are going to, and gentlemen, we are going to break off into some breakout rooms, and hopefully we can have some good dialogue about what one piece of advice do you wish you had at the beginning of the pandemic. And so I think, let's see, Linda's going to be getting us into these different rooms here. Let's see. Right, Linda?
Yes, they are opening right now.
Awesome. Okay.
Why don't we wait for that part? Okay. So for April 15th, so Rotary Means Business has been meeting regularly. It's just not
It's been a year of that for sure. Yeah.
So my name is Michelle Clement. I'm the executive director at Anita Naperville, which is a 62 plus active adult community. So the advice that I would give to myself, having to have experienced this pandemic now for over a year and dealing with shutdowns and potential mass infection of my entire community at one time, would be to take a deep breath and just go with the flow. The change is going to happen. And, kind of to Anita's point, like you can only control your reaction to what's happening. So just take a deep breath. It will be okay. And control how you react, because in the end, my residents and my team were looking to me and my reaction to see how they should react. And so if I panicked everybody panicked. So
Yeah.
so that's what I would say would be my advice, would be take a deep breath before reacting.
Mark.
Can I ask a quick question? Was the advice to ourselves just pre-pandemic, or was it just when we were younger? I
think it was pre-pandemic. I think it was pre-pandemic. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I don't know why I missed the word pre-pandemic. Okay. Thank you.
If you could go back 1 year at the start of this pandemic and give yourself one piece of advice, what would it be?
Yeah.
I can go. Candace Henning, I run the Alive Center. I actually am going to go opposite Cathy. I think I would have preferred to know that it was going to be long, because I think, like a lot of people said, we just thought it was going to be a few weeks. I do think we did a decent job of pivoting at the Alive Center, but I think if I had known, we probably would have dug in even a little bit more. So I don't know.
I feel that my son and I have grown so much closer because of the pandemic. And, you know, because I wasn't so focused on rushing to this place, to that place. Did you do your homework? Did you do this? Do you have to go to bed? You have to, you know, like he could sleep in more now. You know, he didn't have to go to bed so early. We could spend some quality time together. So, you know, just that I didn't have to carry on as I always had been. And it's okay to pause. I would have liked to tell myself that back in March, because it took me several months to start doing that.
Yeah, that's true. Like it did, like you, again, because I think we thought things were going to be a shorter amount of time. We just thought, oh, we'll just make it do for now. But the power of the pause. I love the alliteration. I'm going to use that.
I do like
too.
that.
Yeah, it's true. Anyone else?
Hello. Hi, everybody.
Perfect.
Meeting. Lisa, thanks for inviting me. I'm in. Boy, what a powerful meeting. Thank you all so much. It's just been like fantastic.
Okay.
Anyway, what I would have told myself a year ago, truly, we did a book club at the studio, the Four Truths, and don't take anything personally, because people were freaking out between March and June. And much of that caused me to pause, like, geez, do I need to rework my entire business plan? You know, literally I can.
Excelling, we're achieving, we're hitting the mark. That all completely changed. And I think it's still changing. And, you know, I think it became a question of control again, where the things that I wanted to be able still to cling to and believe were intact really weren't. And so I had to redefine, well, what is true and intact and meaningful anymore. And so we found ourselves doing so many different things that we would never have had reason to consider doing. And that became a hallmark of success. So it wasn't, you know, yeah, we had our hopes dashed because my daughter had an opportunity to perform in a recital. She plays piano, and she was slated to perform in a recital that got canceled because it was scheduled for March 14th. And we'd been working for so many weeks in preparation for it. And she had an audition scheduled not too many weeks thereafter that also got canceled. And we're like, well, what are we going to do? She's got all these pieces she's been working on for months. And what does success mean now? Nothing. And we decided, you know what, wait, there's this thing called Zoom that people are using. And I think I can make an account. And we ended up hosting a family Zoom recital. And so we had my relatives in India that signed on, and we had people all across the US, and we never would have thought to do something like that.
Yeah.
So I just think redefining what your measures of success are and aligning those measures with what ultimately drives you and what you value has been the best lesson that I could have learned from all of this.
Who else wants to go next?
You want me to go next?
Go ahead, John.
The token man.
The token
well,
man.
I can just say that everything you all have expressed is what I've kind of gone through. When it hit, I became scared emotionally. All of a sudden, you don't see anybody on the street in my neighborhood. But what I ended up doing, the business started to nosedive. And I've never had that happen in 31 years. My company's Awards and Fine Gifts. I've been in business 36 years. But I'm blessed. What eventually evolved is I took up exercising again. And so I do that every morning. And on top of that, I've never meditated before. I now meditate a half an hour every morning with a group on a Zoom group.
Love it.
And that has been a significant help when I'm going through all of the ups and downs about where my business is going. But I'm blessed, like Kim said, about family. I've got Kim, you know, Whitney. Whitney lives 2 blocks away with 3 kids.
You're the luckiest
Holly.
dad.
Thank you.
Here mid-pandemic last year. I keep trying to think what I would tell myself, and I have no idea because it has been one day at a time. My kids didn't get to meet friends. We started a business that's been kind of its thing in its own. And my husband just reminds me every day, control what you can control. And so when that was said in the big group, I was just laughing because that's been the motto of our year this last year, because we came out here when everything shut down last year, trying to find a house. And it was like, we didn't know where we were going to live. So it's truly been amazing in a lot of ways, hard in a lot of ways. Haven't really found our group of people yet, but I will say this, the chamber has been a really great place for me to start and find some people in the community, because that just wasn't possible without these Zoom. And so I would say to anyone a year ago, take a deep breath and one day at a time, because that's all you can do. And that's what we had to do this last year. So I'm excited to be here. And this has been a great.
She froze on a little bit of that, but I heard now she's on. Did you mute that on?
Oh, sorry. My
Nope, it's fine.
service has been bad. I was just saying it's been a tough year, and you know, take each day as it is, and I think continuing forward, take one day at a time, because you just don't know, kind of learn that.
Does anyone else want to go?
Sarita,
I think you were going to go. Yeah, sorry.
Hi, I'm Sarita Arellano, and I own 2 businesses I run in Naperville, STEM enrichment and an accounting consulting business. The one thing I would say I wish I could tell myself a year ago was just to go with the flow. My personality is to have it all jotted down, have a plan. And that's one thing that it's taught me is, as you guys have been saying, you know, we're not in control, or just to go with the flow, you know, do your best you can every day and just leave the rest to be as it's meant to be. But this time for me, I usually am running pretty busy, just from kids' activities to businesses. This time really has been to decompress. Now that you actually have a lot of time during the pandemic, to reassess what's important, what's not. So I kind of view the pandemic as like a reset button. So hopefully many of us have been able to reassess what is really truly important to us. And hopefully as we come out of this pandemic, it's a second chance to do everything what really you were meant to do and where your heart is.
Oh. Like we have 59 seconds.
All right, who wants to go in 55 seconds? Anyone have any quick tidbits, things they wish they knew?
Nothing that hasn't already been said, but I would have been one to have done History with Bridge Communities. I would have been one to have wanted to know how long it was going to last. So I could pace myself, and just then it would force me to say one day at a time, 1 minute at a time, as opposed to, gee, I wonder when this is going to end, you know?
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, that would have been, well, either that or not helpful, knowing that you got a year ahead of you.
Yeah. I think you do more of the family Zoom and you're like, all right, this isn't just like a one-time thing. We got to set up a regular, or, you know, there's things I think I would have done different, but it was, yeah, it was bad and good. You got to look for the silver lining.
College age girls and those in the earlier parts of their career who maybe
I'm sure
don't get
it's
this kind of
probably
advice.
being
I'm sure it'll be uploaded.
recorded.
Yeah, I can't wait to share it with my daughter. It's really been wonderful.
Welcome back, everyone. So I want to just come together for the few minutes we have left and talk about some comments, tidbits in your groups that you heard. Does anyone want to offer, or we can, like Michelle, do you want to?
Yep, I can I'll jump in. Yeah. So Amanda and I were in the same room. A lot of what was discussed was, you know, some of us would have liked to have known how long this was actually going to last, right? So that we could prepare ourselves. A lot of what came up was controlling our reaction to what was happening. That was, for me personally, doing what I do in senior living. My reaction to what was happening around me was important to not panic my team and my residents. And so that we kind of talked about the taking a deep breath, you know, taking a step back before you reacted to whatever situation was occurring. And then I love Leah said, it could always be worse, right? So we all thought it was just going to be 2 weeks, and it wasn't, but it really forced us to reassess what was important in our lives. You know, that I think Nicki said it's the power of the pause, right? So we all had that time to reassess what was most important in life.
Thank you, Michelle. Anyone else want to mention anything they heard or they felt?
Well, we actually had 2 people in our group that actually got new jobs during the pandemic. So I just want to give a little shout out to that, because that's really great that, you know, that things were progressing and moving forward at a time when we were dealing with so much.
This is Ashley. So I was in the group with Dr. Cathy and Heather and a few others. And some of the things that our group mentioned and discussed that I would love to share is to be present. And one of the women was saying that her goal for 2020 was to make herself present to her clients, and then the pandemic hit. It was just difficult, and how she reinvent and still be present, and at least to keep that in her mind and to be present for her clients and her people in her family, in her life. So I thought that was really cool. And then we all like experienced that. We wish it could be, we would know how long it's going to be, and we can plan for vacation and stay at a beach house and just be patient with what we know that's going to happen. So I think it was just very good to hear from everyone. And yeah, thank you.
You know, I think it's, I don't know, I'm kind of, I'm with Cathy Suber on this. Like, I kind of like, don't tell me. Like at the time, like, I don't want to know how long this is going to last, because I don't know if I'm going to like be able to hang on. You know what I mean? But I don't know, if you did know, then maybe you could like say, okay, I am going to learn sign language, or I am going to take a class, or I am going to, you know, but regardless, here we are, and we're seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. Okay, anyone else?
I probably would have bought more black leggings with side pockets, right?
God, pockets.
My mother-in-law just bought me 3 pair. Like, I love her forever.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And I would have bought extra leggings. Like,
yeah.
Yeah.
Tons of them.
Yep. All right. Well, I want to thank the amazing panel we had today. Thank you so much, Cathy, Kim, Anita, Patti, for moderating. Nicki, thank you so much. In a few days, within a few days, you guys will be getting a survey please, please, please fill this out. This is helpful because it will let us know where everyone's at. If you want to see more Zoom, or if you would like to have more in-person programming. Also, Woman of the Quarter nominations. So that will be on there as well. So please fill that out and it will go back to us and we will definitely be able to review it. All right. Anyone have any final thoughts? Okay.
Wonderful.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye,
you.
guys. Thank you.
Have
Bye,
a good
guys.
night.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.